You may have heard the old saying, if you think you know what you're doing, you most likely don't. And it's not just a cliche. When it comes to choosing your tech stack, the stakes are high. Truth is, you can easily get trapped in the app rabbit hole. A hero app one day, and not so much the next. With over 2 million apps now on the App Store, it's not hard to feel like you're wasting your money every time you download a new one. So how to choose less to do more? Myself, Nadia Burka, the founder of this project, am thrilled to invite you to our podcast episodes where we get hold of lead app founders for killer interviews to find out. And this is episode number 2 at Which Apps for Business podcast, and we're having it with Jillie Smalls, CEO of Lawzyapp, the only app to date that lets you DM your lawyer on the go. Let's find out. Hello. We are here today and we're very excited to welcome to our podcast, Which Apps for Business. And we're here with Jillian Baronoff, who is the CEO of Lawzyapp. Jillian, welcome and thank you for accepting to be here today.
Hi, of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Jillian. Obviously, you are a lawyer yourself, so I suppose the first need comes from you as well, knowing what's out there, what the challenges might be out there in the industry. But likewise, as I was alluding to you earlier, I prepared a list of questions for us today because as a lawyer's daughter, I'm actually interested in the functionalities of that too. So please tell us a little bit about yourself and about Lawzyapp. Where's the link? What's the link there?
Sure. The link is lawzyapp.com, so LAWZYAPP.com. And Lawzy is basically a very easy way where you can ask a lawyer a question for $40 and receive a response within 48 hours or less. So for me, I was a divorce attorney for about 4 years before I decided to do Lawzy. And I realized that there were so many people that just didn't have access to lawyers or legal help. And sometimes you just have a question, right? You don't want to have to pay the cost of talking to a lawyer for an hour, doing a consultation, or you go online and you Google information and you're just bombarded with legal terms that you don't understand. So Lawzy eliminates that noise, and we also eliminate some of the barriers with price and even the intimidation of having to call a lawyer, where you can download this app, you select an area of law, you type out your question, and that's sent out to a lawyer and you receive a response.
Excellent. That sounds, firstly, like a service platform, but also an educational platform along the line, whereby, you're eliminating that barriers you were saying of not knowing necessarily certain terms that are very, very specific to the industry. So in terms of your investment of time, what made you invest your time and effort to start developing the app concept, and what was your key motivation there?
Sure. We started Lawzy pre-COVID, and in our digital world, and I think especially for millennials, which I would say is our audience, we're always on our phone. And when we did consumer research, we found people weren't really using desktops unless they were at work. And asking a legal question on a desktop might be something, especially if you're at work, right? You're uncomfortable about. Or if you have a shared family computer, maybe you're having a weak point in a relationship and you want to ask the divorce question, right? You might not want to ask a question through your computer, where we have a sense of privacy in our phones. So I thought from a convenience factor, having an app made a lot of sense for where we were. And now that we've shifted, right, with COVID, I think again, yes, while people are now using computers a little bit more often, it's still that digital world. And if anything, law, which has been kind of this archaic industry where we don't like change, we're now being forced to shift and change. And so it's just a great entry point for where Lawzy is now.
That sounds like a revolutionary move, more of a disruptor move in the industry, to which comes my next questions. Is Lawzyapp a revolutionary app in your consideration? And if so, why? What's the app main mission, please?
Sure. So our main mission is actually to make informed decisions, the status quo, right? Because there are some decisions where you can just go with your gut, and there are other decisions that you make, whether it's a business decision or it's doing a prenup, whatever the case may be, that it requires a little bit more thought. And so we thought when people make better informed decisions, they live better lives, and then it has a bigger effect on communities. So that's why we believe this message of making informed decisions is so important. We believe that Lawzy is revolutionary because there's no one who is really tackling the user, the individual. Right now, it's apps that are designed, or it's websites designed to help a small business. And while we have the tools to do that, what about the entrepreneurs that don't have the money to hire a full-time lawyer, right? What about the
Absolutely.
person who has just a contract issue? Maybe it's a contractor on their house. Maybe they're closing on a home and they have a question about a contract. They could come to us in a way that's very easy. It's 3 steps to ask a lawyer a question and receive advice.
Absolutely, and I've also seen from working virtually on the platform that in terms of submitting all of those steps, they're very easy. So effectively, what you have to do is just pick an area of law, ask a question, check out and submit, and then within 48 hours, you promise to deliver a question to those who ask that question. Sorry, the answer to those who ask that question. It's that easy, sounding very, very easy, isn't it? Hmm.
Yes. And so for us, if for some reason a lawyer can't answer your question, you're actually never charged until you receive an answer from a lawyer. So you put in your credit card information, just like a food delivery service, right? Or an Uber, and you have a hold on your credit card because we obviously want to make sure you have the funds to make the purchase, but your card will never be charged unless you receive that response from a lawyer.
How interesting. And then, Julie, just in terms of the quality of that answer, as in if the user might not necessarily feel that the question would have been delivered fully and completely, what would then be the stance? How would the app respond then?
Sure. For us, there's a level of education on the lawyer side and the consumer side. So when we have a lawyer who comes on our app, we say to them, do not answer a question unless you can give the user enough information where they feel
Excellent.
comfortable taking another step. Because some people, they're navigating an issue on their own. Other people might be vetting an attorney, right? So if you give a great response to a question, you might want to hire this lawyer. And so if you can't give someone enough information where they can take that next step and feel unstuck, do not answer the question. And in a case like that, what happens is you receive, as the user, a message from Lawzy as a text and an email letting you know why the lawyer could not answer your question. So on the consumer side, right, there's still a level of education there, which is you need to give the lawyer as much information as possible, right? So this isn't a situation where less is more. More is more because the more information you give the lawyer, the better advice that they can give you. And so it's really tackling both messages in order to have a great experience. So that's one of the things that we do. In addition to that, what lawyers have been doing is if it's a response, if someone has a question that might need a consultation, Lawzy is not a replacement for that, right? But what a lawyer can do is they can say, here are your options based off of the information that you gave me. But if you want a consultation, since you already paid the $40, we'll do a half hour for free. So a lot of lawyers have been doing that as well.
That's very interesting as well, because obviously, from those ones who would have addressed the first questions, a lot might be the actual consumers who might stay there for longer term interactions as well. So there's definitely a connection there in between the two. And there's another angle which we'll definitely explore in a little bit more detail in a couple of minutes. But going back to the app mission, I was wondering how far are you from accomplishing the app mission from what you've discussed earlier with us already, and what were the main rocks you've shifted so far along the way to get where you are now?
I would say for us, we're very much at the beginning of trying to accomplish that mission. We've onboarded attorneys, and what's great about COVID, not a lot of great things about COVID, but the great
No.
thing, no, the great thing about what COVID has done for the legal industry, especially in the US, is for the first time, law has been forced to adopt technology, right? And so for
Interesting.
me personally, before Lawzy went live, I was still working at my law firm and we did trials remotely through Zoom. So I had a 6-day trial all done through Zoom. I never thought that would happen. That wasn't even in the realm of possibility. And so now the courts here are saying, okay, there are certain situations, right, where you might have a 5-minute hearing in front of a judge where Zoom is better. So now lawyers are realizing, okay, well, I can use technology for lead generation to reach new consumers, and they're beginning to embrace it. And I think without COVID forcing that shift, it never would have happened.
See how interesting it impacts certain industries, like travel, for instance, has been impacted in much negative way possible. In your case, it's an opening door for new possibilities and new opportunities, really. But then in terms of that angle with new opportunities, I'd be really curious to find out. You're in the US, you've launched the app where you originate from. Are there any plans to extend it internationally? Because I'd be the first one up for it.
Yes, we would love that. So right now we're actually in Florida, so just one state in the US. We are very much in the beginning stage. And the reason why is because legal is highly regulated. So just like Uber, right? Before they could go into another country or another state, you have to follow the regulations of that state. So we have those same limitations. Some states are like, yes, we want Lawzy. Other states say, no, we want to protect our bar association for lawyers. So once we
Mm,
tackle the
mhm.
US, we would love to be international. I actually had someone reach out to us from Lebanon who said they would love an app like this. And so, yes, we would love to be in the UK. And the UK is actually ahead of us for legal tech.
So going back then to the app itself and its productive mission, now there's obviously an app that lets you DM a lawyer. What if the user might feel that his or her question hasn't been fully answered or incomplete to the level of, not going a bit more deeper into it?
Sure. So, what we do to tackle that is after you receive an answer from a lawyer, you then have the option to rate a lawyer. And our rating system is very
Excellent.
similar to an Uber, right? Where you give the 5-star rating. And if you give us 5 stars, we ask you, okay, well, what did we do well? Is it the price point? Is it the lawyer's professionalism? Right. So we ask you some things about the app, some things about the lawyer, because you might give 5 stars, not necessarily because the response of the lawyer was so incredible, but you just had a great user experience, right? And if you give us less than 5 stars, we ask you what we did wrong, right? And again, we do the same thing. Was it something to do with the app or was it something to do with the lawyer? Because you might think our price point is too high, right? And so we don't want the lawyer to have a negative review, right? When it's really
Absolutely.
something that we have to improve on. In addition to that, in your settings, there is a way where you can report professionalism. We do not want lawyers on our app who are not acting professionally. We also don't want users on our app that aren't acting appropriately. And so, on both the lawyer and the consumer side, there's a way for you to send us directly through the app. Any issue, whether it's technical, professional, anything else, you can let us know and we can address
That's excellent because effectively in one question you've answered two. My next
it.
question was about the customer reviews and the satisfaction. So thank you.
Yes.
Easy. Now the next one I've got on my list is from your own quote, contracts can be confusing while getting help from a lawyer is simple on Lawzy. Since there's an element of complexity, would you see Lawzy more compatible with the early stage Q&As or going deeper?
Yes, I would say Lawzy is better for early stage because it's your first interaction with a lawyer. It's your first step, right? Lawzy is not a replacement for a consultation. And I say this again because I think it's important for people to understand the distinction. So it's a starting point, and it's a great place for you to answer or to ask straightforward questions. It's not a place for you to go and try to get complex advice. That's kind of the next step. But for an early stage company who's maybe navigating a term sheet, they may not realize that by giving equity away, right, there is tax implications to that. You know, you have to potentially do a valuation, right, if you're selling shares of your company, depending on where you are. And these are all things you can ask on Lawzy and get responses to.
Excellent. Sounds really good and reassuring as well. In terms of the end beneficiaries, what would be your stats today? How many are there on the app? What's the retention rate? How would you qualify it?
Sure. On the lawyer side, that's really where we focused our time in the beginning because we can't have people ask questions without having quality lawyers. And we've been, again, very surprised on how well we've done onboarding really quality attorneys. And we did some attorneys that are starting out their careers and some that are very seasoned. And that was intentional because not every person can afford the very seasoned lawyer. But there are young lawyers who are fantastic, right? Whose hourly rate is going to be less if you decide to retain them. So that's been great for us. So now we're shifting towards the consumers That's been more challenging. And so I would say that's a pain point for us. It's really getting the word out because using an app to get legal advice is a new behavior. So people aren't used to
Absolutely.
it and they don't know me yet. So they don't necessarily trust me. And so doing interviews like this to get our name out there has really helped.
Excellent. Thank you so much. But it's already reassuring the fact that you're getting obviously the quality lawyers and attorneys on your app, which basically is the first starting point to it. Then, in terms of collecting the data on most frequently asked questions that your lawyers get, it could be a time saver having this added to the FAQ section on your site to help move the complexity ladder. What would be your thoughts around that as a feature?
I'm 100% for that. For us, we need more data in order to have a really substantive list for our users. But I agree. If there's a way that we can have some answers on our website to even make our end users feel more comfortable using our app or feel like this is a quality service, we 100% want to do that. So it is a step that we'd like to do in the short term.
And then my next question around it would be, can users choose a lawyer based on their qualification, or is this falling under the app remit? Have you thought about this angle?
Yes, that is a next step for us. We actually have a feature that's already built out where you can swipe through lawyers similar to a dating app. So you
Nice.
select a lawyer based off of area of law in addition to location, expertise, and then we'll match you with about 5 lawyers at a time. Because what we didn't want to do is overwhelm you with, okay, here's 20 lawyers, right? Because most people
Exactly.
don't know the difference between one lawyer to the next. So we said, okay, let's do 5, right? And you can compare the 5 and then you can select a lawyer. So what you'll see is a lawyer profile where we always give you the bar number of that lawyer. So you can go in the US, you're part of the State Bar Association, you can look them up, ensure they're in good standing, see all their information. We allow the lawyer to provide information about their background, whether it's education, professional, what law firm, right? So there's just another way there for you to vet an attorney.
Excellent.
Because for us, we want to help the individual gain access to our legal system in a way that they can't right now. And so, if a lawyer can answer a question and make an impact in someone's life, those are actually the stories I would rather highlight versus just saying, this lawyer answered 100 questions because I don't know how much value that really adds for the consumer on our app.
Now, the best case scenario for Lawzy, what would that be?
That we are international, right? We're the go-to legal app for your questions.
But in terms of what is the current market appetite prepared to avoid bureaucracy and adopt the pay-as-you-go model, what do you think? Where are we at the moment? In which stage?
It's changing. I can tell you that in the US, before COVID, a lot of states were very adverse to these types of services. And it wasn't the consumer, right, who's using a service like LegalZoom, for example. It was actually the state bar associations who are trying to protect their bar and protect lawyers. And they feel that legal technology, like a LegalZoom, right, where you can just get a contract and download it, would hurt our industry. And the Department of Justice actually said, well, no, it sounds like you're just trying to protect yourself. And this is really great for the individual. And we have something in the US called the access to justice issue, where people who just don't have access to our justice system for a variety of reasons, including price. So now the state bars that before were trying to sue companies like Lawzy to keep us out are being forced to say, okay, well, at this point, if we can't get rid of them, we might as well join them, come to our state, let's figure out a way for us to work together. So I'm excited for the shift that's happening. And I hope that we just have the opportunity to continue growing and helping people.
That sounds excellent, Jillian. That sounds of a true mission you've got in front and something that a lot of users would be looking for. As you said, there's a price issue at stake. There's also the service quality issue at stake, and I'm sure that there's a lot of reasons out there for a lot of people to pursue as part of the journey. Now, I suppose the last one would be a message for your audience, that's the clients and the lawyers. What would that be from you?
So my message for my audience, I would say for the lawyers, what's amazing about Lawzy is it really functions as lead generation. It's a way for you to reach an audience that you couldn't reach through your website or traditional marketing. And we actually don't make money through the consumer. So if a consumer is concerned, well, we're double dipping. Maybe there's a service fee and their $40 is going to us and not the lawyer. Well, that's actually not true. We make money off of the lawyers. So the lawyers pay a monthly subscription to us, and we function again as the lead generation. So every question that's asked on the app, we actually give that money to the lawyer. And so that incentivizes the lawyer to give that great quality response. And in addition to that, it functions again as lead generation, because if the lawyer performs well, someone might hire them. So if there's concerns about service fees or things like that, there's nothing to worry about. We don't do that. We're free to download. We want to ensure you have a great experience, which is why as a consumer or a lawyer, you always have an opportunity to share feedback with us through the app so we can be better and give you a great experience.
How interesting you've explained here. Thank you. I was actually under the impression, rudimentary, that you would get the main part of the earnings from the consumer as opposed to the actual lawyer, but actually is the other way around, which is fairly eye-opening as well. But at the same time, it shows you that there's a lot of interest from the lawyers to actually get on your app. And I'm personally excited to hear that these initiatives are there, and if they come international, then there would be so many barriers eliminated, the cost barriers, the service level barriers that a lot of people might just not be necessarily fulfilled within their first time interactions. And ultimately, it sounds like it's a pay-as-you-go app for consumers in their interactions with lawyers. So to
Yeah,
me, it's a really straightforward in terms of understanding how it
thank
functions.
you. Yes, for us, we think it's kind of like checks and balances on the system. It's holding lawyers accountable through our rating system, right? And then at the same time, even if you've hired a lawyer, maybe you want a second opinion. Well, here's another way that you can do it. And so for us, I have this vision of a person sitting at a negotiation table. Maybe it's with their employer, maybe it's with a realtor, they're trying to buy something, and someone makes an offer, and the Lawzy user can say, okay, just give me a second. I want to just text my lawyer, right? And they can just pay $40, but it sounds like they've got this high power lawyer on the other side. So it's checks and balances, it's
Savvy.
leveling the playing field. And that's what we're trying to do.
That's excellent. That makes the user feel and look savvy, right? And they
Yeah,
can,
and have a little
decide.
power, right? We all
Yeah,
want that.
yeah, empowered users. I'm glad that is there and that you guys exist. So hopefully it's going to be a bit more of an international move soon. And if that happens, I'd be very keen to hear more about that. Thank you so much for your time. I basically got another banner to say thank you, Jillie, for your time today.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully I can come back in a few months and I can share our progress with you.
Thank you so much, Jillian. Wishing you all the best. Thank you, guys.
All right, bye.